Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first week's webinar. And today's the first day, and we're focusing on sustainability. I'd like to welcome our amazing panel that has joined us today from around the world, which I'd like to start off by introducing our chairman for PCIW, which is John Mill. For those of you who don't know myself, I'm Yvette Ashby, the CEO. The webinar that we put together today, I've chosen each and every one on the panel for their incredible innovation that they're steering for our industry at the moment. Not only for the professional clothing industry, but for the textile industry as a whole. So I'd like to start off by introducing Alexander Sturgeon from the Global Project Manager from Lenzing Workwear. She'll be talking about sustainability products in the textile and fiber. There's also Sean Moore, Quality Assurance Manager for Carrington Textiles. And he'll be giving you his insight and the assisted sustainability products also. Cindy McNall, Business Development Director from Cadora Brand in Vista. I'm really excited to hear the new development that they will be putting to all of you this afternoon. Tim Cross, Director of Project Plan B. I think everybody should be excited about what Tim is bringing to the table today with an end product that can be fully recyclable. I think you should look out for that in particular. Cindy Rose, who lots of us would have known by now. We've been working with her now for many, many years, who is going to revolutionize the sustainability technology, and I'm really excited about that. And Cindy is from Warn Again Technology. Catherine Salvage, from a Sustainable Textile Solution Specialist from RAP. And again, talking about the full circle and the end of life. One of the things that I wanted to say today is that, I've been working with a lot of buyers, suppliers around the world. And one of the messages that I wanted to put across to everybody today is that I don't want people to be thinking about sustainability as a buzzword. We've gone way beyond that now, and just thinking it for themselves as marketing. It is an essential part of our everyday life. We really have got to think carefully of what we're going to be leaving behind and what we're going to be taking forward for the next 10 years. The team I put together today is to bring you some of the challenges that we're facing, some of the opportunities that are available to everyone, and the end of life that is also available to all of you. The panel will be available afterwards for questions, which you can type in on your screen for me. And my colleague, Declan, our editor, will be reading out those questions. So please pile your question on, but at the end of the presentation that the panel will be putting forward shortly, you can answer. We'll get those questions answered for you. And if for any reason the questions are not completed by the time with the end of this session, we'll endeavour to make sure that all questions are replied to by our excellent panel. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our chairman, Mr. John Mill, who'll just take you through a little bit about PCIW and our first webinar week and what we're trying to achieve. John Mill.
Thank you, Yvette. And a very warm welcome to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to our very first webinar week, which we hope will be the first of many to come. This week, we'll be engaging with industry after a difficult year in order to get the focus back on track and to pick up from where we left off in dealing with the challenges the industry faces. Today, the issue is at hand. Today, the issue at hand is sustainability. With the textile industry being the second largest polluter in the world, it is imperative that we look back on what we've done to the planet in order to make sure the necessary changes are done and made and think greener. To allow us to be able to do that, I'd like to thank Invista Cultura for their terrific support for today's topic. I would also like to welcome our panelists and presenters today and thank them for their knowledge, expertise, and indeed for giving us their time today, both to present and answer some of your questions on the very relevant topic of sustainability. And as Yvette has mentioned, we'll ensure that all the questions will be answered, particularly those not covered today because of time constraints. We are following this up with further webinars on PPE, UK CA marking of PPE, and manufacturing and sourcing. We very much hope you find the topics we have established to be of value to you, and we look forward to you joining us on other afternoons this week as your time and interest allows. The professional clothing industry worldwide is the only sector-specific trade body devoted to the multifaceted professional clothing industry and help our members discover new opportunities for their businesses by putting buyers in touch with suppliers for workwear, corporate wear, and PPE. As a not-for-profit organisation, we place our members at the forefront of our work, and we're run by our members for the benefit of our members. We're thus a knowledge bank, a meeting place, a network, and a voice to government. We bring together organisations, experts, and individuals from across the industry to create a platform through which we provide business opportunities, professional guidance, and strategic support for those who are part of our thriving trade, helping our members grow their business and extend their reach. We also publish online the PCIW Voice magazine dedicated to the industry. We also celebrate the industry by organising the annual PCIW Awards event, and alongside this run a summit of relevant topics for learning, debate, and discussion. Sadly, we were not able to hold it this year due to the pandemic, but are intending to hold it next year in June 2021, when we very much hope it can be run in accordance with government guidelines in force at the time. Please look for updates on our website at www.pciw.org. So finally, thank you for joining us all this afternoon. If you have any feedback, we'd be delighted to hear from you either directly to Yvette and her team or through info@pciw.org. Back to you, Yvette.
Thank you, John. So, our first panelist that's up to this afternoon is Alexander Sturgeon from Lenzing. Alex, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Yvette and John, for the introduction and having me here. I'm sharing my screen now and hope it works. Can you see it?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot. So the title of my short presentation is Stand Up Against Business as Usual. This is actually the title of our latest sustainability report. So to answer the question of your webinar headline, we are not only ready to change, we think it's high time to do so. And today I'd like to give you a short insight into sustainability in the Lenzing Group. Naturally Positive is the Lenzing Group sustainability strategy. It was developed as a result of the materiality analysis conducted in 2015 and 16. And it focuses on those sustainability areas where Lenzing has greatest impact in creating a more sustainable world, and is the basis for our approach to contribute to the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. I'd like to highlight only some focus areas of our sustainability strategy. And one is the raw material security. As you might know, wood is the most important natural resource for the Lenzing Group. Therefore, our focus is on sustainable sourcing through certifications, responsible consumption, and also highly efficient use of wood. So we have a strict wood and pulp sourcing policy in place. We do not source any wood or dissolving wood pulp from ancient and endangered forests, as well as high conservation value areas. We are committed to sourcing wood and dissolving wood pulp exclusively from non-controversial sources. And all our production sites are FSC certified. One of the very, very important sectors is circularity, because today's waste is tomorrow's raw material. What is left over from one process is used as raw material for another process. So we can reduce the need for virgin resources, we can avoid waste, we can increase resource efficiency and minimize the environmental impact. We combine the cellulosic fiber cycle of our wood-based products, which is a biological cycle, with our innovative technologies that focus on closing loops and recovery, which are rather technical cycles. The biological cycle starts from the renewable resource wood, which is converted into dissolving wood pulp and subsequently into fibers. But we use and utilize 100% of the wood. This is what we call our biorefinery concept. Wood material that is not used for the production of dissolving wood pulp and fibers provides the basis for valuable bio-based products like e.g. acetic acid and xylose, which we sell to the food industry, and of course, energy. Our customers use the fibers in different applications, and the biological cycle is closed when the fibers biodegrade or are composted at their end of life. In the technical cycle, we want to minimize the environmental footprint and to improve resource efficiency by closing the loops of fiber production technologies with state-of-the-art recovery rates. But Lenzing also considers the downstream value chain steps. I would present you in this respect our new Refibra technology, which recycles cellulosic waste from pre-consumer garment making and post-consumer garment waste into dissolving wood pulp and feeds it back into the fiber production without any loss of quality. Tencel lyocell fibers with Refibra technology now feature up to 30% of recycled raw material content from pre- and post-consumer cotton textile waste. But this concept is rather a journey. So our 5-year vision is to rise the industry bar and produce fibers with Refibra technology with up to 50% recycled content from post-consumer cotton textile waste in order to make textile waste recycling as common as paper recycling. Another important point of our strategy is decarbonization. Climate change is one of the most pressing challenges of our generation, calling for collaborative solutions all along the value chain. As you might know, pulp and fiber production are, of course, energy-intensive processes, and consequently, we are committed to reducing specific CO2 emissions of the Lenzing Group, as well as of our energy providers, pulp suppliers, and also the downstream value chain through sustainable innovations. In fact, Lenzing fibers consume already less energy and therefore emit less CO2 than comparable products in markets. So we provide already a choice for our customers to decide on products that protect the climate. In October, we've launched our True Carbon Zero initiative with carbon neutral Tencel branded cellulose fibers. For the fibers to become carbon neutral, we've set the following internal guidelines. We've set, on the one hand, site-specific guidelines. So for the carbon reduction, we have a roadmap for science-based targets in place. Then there are product-specific guidelines, which contain the decrease of carbon emissions for scope 1, 2, and 3 by 60% compared to generic modal or lyocell fibers. We consider renewable grid electricity for the production sites. We have their offsetting of the remaining emissions. And this all is in line with initiatives like the UN Fashion Pact or the UN Climate Action Now. Based on the Carbon Neutral Protocol, which is a 5-step framework to reach zero carbon emissions. This concept and footprint is approved by an independent third party, which is Natural Capital Partners, a UK-based party. And here I would like to stop. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion and to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. I took the opportunity and was invited to Lenzing earlier this year. It's an incredible place, and when this pandemic is over, anyone who's interested in sustainability and still seeing the full process, I would advise you to go and pay Lenzing a visit. Alex, thanks again. Our next panelist that's coming up is Sean Moore from Carrington Textile. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, John, for the invite. I'm going to do this with no slides, unfortunately. When I got the invitation to speak, I sort of thought, well, sustainability, what does that mean? And to those of us that are old enough to remember it, the catchphrase, that's a $64,000 question. The dictionary definition would be the property of being environmentally sustainable, the degree to which a process or enterprise is able to be maintained or continued while avoiding long-term depletion of natural resources. Quite a mouthful, that. But over time, like you say, Yvette, I think the adjective sustainable has been hijacked and been buzzworded, forced to fit a whole host of other areas. So we hear businesses talking about sustainable growth or sustainable energy, even sustainable wage for developing countries where our garments are often made. So it doesn't quite just fit the dictionary definition anymore. But when people approach us and they say, we like a particular fabric or a collection that you've done, but we need it to be sustainable, my usual comments, and the one that makes the sales director run for the hills saying it's the sales prevention officer, is that we've engineered fabrics that can sometimes last 200 washes and still be wearable. Dyed in a factory that will use 50% of the water of a traditional process. Any waste heat from the process is recycled and used to heat incoming water. Any chemicals such as caustic soda that we'd send to drain, historically, we now recycle that where possible. Anything that can't be recycled, they have a run to dry system. So basically you're minimizing the amount of chemical waste that you do have to dispose of. Next year, the same factory is looking at installing a combined heat and power plant, which basically means they'll generate their own electricity from the heat that they use to power the boilers. Any additional steps we can do are things like we could use a different spinning methodology that will, in recent testing, showed a significant reduction in microfiber generation during the washing process. We can swap out cotton for Tencel, which is a very green fiber, as Alex has just demonstrated. We've got trials ongoing with polyesters that will break down in seawater. So if we do have any microfibers that come off, those will degrade over time and not become persistent. We've got access to dyes that are synthesized from food waste and from chemicals that are plant-based, but they come with their own sort of drawbacks in terms of durability for our end use. Hemp's growing in significant interest with people, so we've got projects looking at hemp. When we drill into it, customers are really often only looking at having the inclusion of recycled fibre. It's quite a blinkered approach. And we do have some recycled fibres. We've got post-consumer bottle in the polyester form, and we've even got cotton and polyester fibres from the end life of textile products. But it's this hang-up of recycled to be sustainable is like one tick box. And sometimes customers will say to us, well, that's what the consumer wants to see on a label. And I think that's quite a short-term view, that these same people that want to see recycled on the labels are the same people that are fueling these fast fashion brands. I think, yes, recycling and the wider circular, especially fibre to fibre movement, has got a massive role in sustainability. And any research and investment that you can put into that area needs to be definitely applauded. I mean, ideally for us, the utopia would be along the lines of a system that gives us fibre that has exactly the same performance in terms of durability and strength as the virgin fibres. So we're looking at the likes of One again to see what kind of visionary systems they can bring to us. But personally, I think we should look at the wider view, the holistic view, and looking at sustainability. And even the SAC, Sustainable Apparel Coalition, made the devil's fibre, polyester. They branded it as the most sustainable fibre very recently on the Higg Index. And that caused a lot of debate in the textile world and a lot of anger from the natural fibre producers. But maybe Higg's got a point that when you use polyester, you do reduce energy used in the drying of the fabric and the drying of your garments. You reduce the water because it doesn't actually need all the water that cotton needs to grow. It extends the durability of garments. So, a typical cotton garment might have a martingale abrasion of 25,000 rubs before it's worn out, whereas the same weight of a polyester cotton can go over 50,000 rubs. So that holistic view of let's look at the whole life cycle of the product is taken into view, and perhaps LCAs and environmental product declarations, EPDs, are the way to go. There's a couple of ISOs now that are out, which is 10425 and 14040 that look at these areas, and perhaps they offer a better measure of sustainability. But it's educating our customers to educate their customers about what those kind of things mean. There's been a lot of branding done on other systems first, but as professional clothing and uniform suppliers, we're often tasked with giving a fixed number of garments to wearers, and they've got to last as long as possible. So we can engineer them to be durable and as sustainable as possible. But I think we've got to really break that habit, that consumer habit of cheap, fast fashion, of buying organizations just looking for the lowest cost article and not considering what they do with those at the end of life, etc. Prince Charles, earlier this month, he unveiled a collection where the focus was on lifespan and having clothes which last longer. And as my mother always used to say to me, I like those M&S t-shirts, they wash well. So anybody's got any questions, we can deal with them at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
From the development point of view, Sean, just ask you there, is it just the polyester that is really sort of you can make the recycled product with to sort of go into and then come out again as a full circle, or is it that, are we talking about mixed cotton, or is it just
as fibre? Polyester's probably had the longer exposure. I've been in the business since the late 80s, and I remember 20 years ago Polar Fleece coming with the Polar Fleece that was made out of the bottles. So they were the first one. But Lenzing have got the Refibras. There's another few other people. Infinited Fibre looking at recycling other cellulosic based product into cellulose fibre. The challenge, I think, comes when it's blended at the spinning stage into a polyester cotton blend or a polyester blend. It's separating them out and recycling them, which is why I'm looking to see Cindy's presentation with eagerness, see how she's going.
Would it have the same properties and the same, will it give you the same longevity and strength once it's been recycled?
It's a little bit weaker. We've on the processes we've run, we've seen strength losses of 15% generally. But then if you use some of the mechanically recycled fibre that you get from things like the Remo process, where it takes end-of-life bed sheets or end-of-life garments and mechanically fibrilises those, with the spinning system involved there, you're perhaps maybe 25 to 30% down in strength, which is probably plenty enough for fashion garments and things like that. But in some technical end users, it just prohibits the use of that. We've
Right.
seen a bit of conflicting studies on microfiber generation. We've seen some that say microfibers are much reduced from recycled polyester, and we've seen other studies that say microfibers are released more from recycled polyester. So there's a bit of a debate on there at the moment. I don't think there's a unified test method yet for counting microfiber generation.
All right. Bless you. Thank you very much, Sean, for that. So next up, we have our wonderful Cindy McNall. Cindy, your mic is off, my lovely.
Thank you for my reminder there, Miss Yvette, my dear friend Yvette, who keeps me straight in all walks of life, including the mute mic. Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry it's having to be virtual. I love coming and joining you guys in person, and I can't wait to do that again soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to take you on a little bit of a Cordura journey. I'm going to, just because I've done this before, and again, I was telling the team a little bit earlier, this is Thanksgiving week here in the USA, and everyone's pulling on my Wi-Fi. So just so that we don't freeze up or have any stall outs or anything, I'm going to go off video for just a second so I can share the high-res pictures, and then I'll be right back to join you in just a sec.
Thank you.
All right, great. Okay. Make sure you guys can see me, or you are all there, and we're on slide 1.
Yes, we're up. Thank you, darling.
All right. Just checking. All right. Well, the Cordura brand, for those of you that don't know a little bit about us, I'll just give you a quick update here. The Cordura brand is part of Invista, and Invista is a leader in fiber, fabric, and raw material building blocks for the industry. And we've been in the workwear industry for many, many years. But in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the markets that we serve, the overview of our advanced fabric technologies, and most importantly, some highlights on where Invista and the Cordura brand are on our sustainability journey. For those of you that know me, and Yvette is one of those, some other folks from my team may be listening in, know me to be this as well, but I'm very personally passionate about sustainability. But I think what you might not know is that sustainability has really been at the core of the Cordura brand since we first started. And that beginning actually was in 1967. And Cordura at that time came onto the scene in a really accelerating change time period. The way we were all living and working and playing was all being transformed, very much like today, by the way. And with nylon 6/6 fiber, our brand was at the forefront of that transformation. So through advances in technology, Cordura fabrics have made it possible to offer a whole new level of durability, which ultimately has become the hallmark of the Cordura brand. And I'm going to try to change my screen here. I apologize, it's not flipping. Okay, don't know what's wrong. Well, I might just have to go without. Let's see. Let me stop sharing. I'll come back again. I knew this would happen.
Take your time. Take your time.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Amongst lots of people that I could just talk for days to. So sorry. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Share screen again. Okay, I'll try this one. Well, that's all right. Can you guys?
So we've got screen 1 up, yeah. Cindy. It's okay. Do you want to go to screen 2?
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I'm there. Okay. Yeah, a lot of it's the delay here, but anyway. All right. So this is a slide that's really going to tell you a little bit about the end uses and technologies that you can find Cordura fabrics. For over 50 years, we've innovated advanced fiber and fabric technologies that help people get empowered and truly just boldly take on the world. Our fabrics help make your jeans stronger, your workwear tougher, and your step just a little bit lighter. So many of you might have seen us rapidly expanding our portfolio in the last 10 years. And I guess, Yvette, you would probably speak to that. Every time we talk, you're saying, wow, what's new? And I'm saying, oh, got something else. And one of those something else's in recent months, actually, is the debut of some our new Cordura Eco line made from nylon. And that complements our Cordura Eco polyester line. And all of those are really helping us broaden our market applications. So we have over 15 different Cordura fabric technologies today, and about 2,500 certified Cordura fabrics and growing. So whether you're seeking something lightweight and comfortable, or tough and rugged, or really even the next level in industry norm-driven protection, we've got a Cordura fabric solution for you. The common theme amongst all of these really is our dedication and continued passion and commitment to innovation and collaboration. And you'll hear a little bit more about that as we go through here, but really teaming up with partners to listen to our customers and identify what those unmet needs are for our joint customers, to help solve problems, invent cutting edge solutions, and truly designing with purpose. So for our perspective, designing with purpose really starts with the creation of durable fabrics for a more sustainable world. Today, more than ever, as we all know, we as individuals and we as an industry really want to feel like we're making a difference to help minimize that environmental footprint. And for us, the Cordura brand is truly trying our darndest to make fabrics that withstand that test of time. And enduring qualities of Cordura fabrics include high tensile strength, high tear strength, and extreme abrasion resistance. And when Sean was talking a little bit about polyester versus, just other fibers in the market, some, I'd say an equivalent to, a polyester like for like, when you're talking Martindale abrasion rubs, is around 250,000 cycles, because that's the minimum that's required for a Cordura fabric in that nylon cotton arena. So you can really start to see the longevity that's coming out of that. So Cordura fabrics truly are built to last, with a legacy of proven performance and dependability. So to reinforce this and this relationship between sustainability and durability, we've recently debuted and formalized something that we've really had in place for a long time, but really wanted to put some serious foundational elements together for it and build from these. And this is our Cordura Pillars of Sustainability program. And it's based on 3 key aspects of our business. So you have product, process, and partnerships. And through these, we truly recognize that everything that's in the supply chain is interlinked. And we're dedicated to building the long-sighted and those very, very healthy relationships with people on a planet that we all share. And we sum it up like this, that sustainability begins with products that last. In terms of products themselves, from this perspective, it all really starts with our brand's enduring, proven, and trusted proposition, which is around durability. For us, that means constantly innovating and driving towards a circular economy. And I'm looking forward to really carrying on those conversations with this panel a little bit later on this afternoon, or morning my time, afternoon your time, and really trying to brainstorm on how we can keep products in use for as long as possible. And in this case, for one of our initiatives, it starts with a focus on Cordura fabrics that have recycled content. We've got recycled polyester, as I mentioned earlier, and we just recently launched a recycled nylon 6 product. And we also have solution dyed technology, or what we call TrueLock, which is when the color is built into the fiber. And not to mention, we do a lot of blends with other eco-efficient fibers, such as Lensington, Tencel, and Modal. And I'll talk to you about that in just a minute as well. All of the recycled Cordura Eco fabrics are supported by our GRS certifications, both from an Invista perspective as well as a supply chain perspective. And one example of discarded to durable is this Timberland Pro safety boot that I have here on the screen. That was launched at last year's A+A. In terms of process, we were committed to using fewer resources, operating safely, protecting the environment, and always acting ethically. And we also are really proud of this wonderful authorized mill network that we have. They are doing some amazing work. And we're working with them to share their eco-efficient innovations and accreditations, whether that be Ecotex, BlueSign, GRS, et cetera. And we're constantly working with them to design products and systems with durability, recycling, and overall circularity at the forefront. For example, in terms of uses of fewer resources, Artistic Milliners, you see them up on the screen here. This is our longest standing Cordura denim mill. They've been with us since 2010 when we first launched Cordura Denim, and they're a true denim mill of the future. They are working towards a zero liquid discharge. And just one example is looping 2 million gallons of water consumed daily back into their manufacturing systems. Chaihe out of Taiwan have implemented a heat recycling system that can reuse 20% of the heat energy and reduce overall carbon emissions by 40%. Sapphire Mills is replacing heavy oil and natural gas with bio-based product fuel sources with an aim to reduce carbon emissions by 55,000 tons annually. Everest, over on the far right here, is using, this is really a fun one, they're using a really cutting edge reuse byproduct to create what they call eco bricks, which are carbon neutral and green bricks for building and construction. And Ecoten out of Turkey have implemented ZDHC, or as my friend Catherine likes to say, ZDHC, but zero discharge of hazardous chemicals as a part of their clean water initiative. And that's just a few small examples of some of the great work that these amazing mills are doing. We, from a partnership perspective, and this is where it's going to be really exciting for us to collaborate a little bit more on this call afterwards and during our Q&A session. But a lot of what we're doing is again, innovation through collaboration. And in the spirit of today's webinar, it can really be a compelling force for change. So partnerships in this particular perspective is working with our supply chain partners to, again, help solve those problems and invent those solutions. One example is the launch of a recent launch, actually, of our Stay Black Durable Denim collection with USA workwear brand Dovetail. This was a really unique one. It was designed by women for women. We had the distinct pleasure to team up with them and the Lensing Tencel team and Artistic Milliners, the mill I was telling you about earlier, in the launch of what we call Supercharged Moi Cordura Denim. And that's a Stay Black Cordura Denim. And it's based on what we call 5S technology, which has stay true color, strength, softness, stretch, and sustainability all baked into one product. So in closing, thank you guys for the opportunity to reinforce our commitments to the planet and help create, excuse me, a more durable and ultimately sustainable world for us all. And as we look to the future, I think net, we would absolutely just love to have you guys join us on the journey of sustainability with us and be a partner. And I'm looking forward to further discussions with the team after this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cindy. That was brilliant. Technology doesn't always work. Trust me, I know these things. But you did a great job. Good recovery. Good recovery.
Thanks. Yeah, I get a little stalled out here, and I think everyone's just pulling on the bandwidth. And I've tried calling my internet provider many times, but
never mind. Thank you. You did a great job. Next up, we have Tim Cross, Director of Plan B. And I'm really excited to hear what Tim is going to be talking about, because he's actually got a product that is ready to go and bring to market. So, Tim, over to you.
Thanks, Yvette. Let me just get my screen up. Hang on, sorry. So, Project Plan B. Well, Project Plan B is our approach to trying to resolve some of the challenges that have been facing the textile industry. And the biggest one that we have seen out there is the inability to recycle textiles. And we have set about trying to find a way of resolving that problem in the simplest way that we can and bringing it to market today. So uniform is probably one of the most polluting textiles. You can't reuse it, you can't recycle it. And because we put brands all over it, that limits the number of times you can enable people to wear the garment afterwards. And we've decided that if you take the garment back to its core state, which is for most workwear garments, is a monofiber. So polyester being the monofiber that most of these garments are made in, we can work out that actually recycling back to monofiber is the easiest way of doing this. So all of our garments are designed to be recycled. They're made out of 100% recycled materials, and every garment can be recycled at end of life. Now, a lot of people have been talking about some of the challenges that are facing recycling. And we realized right at the start that actually you could only figure out how to recycle a garment if you actually understood the processes that were going on. So we actually had to involve ourselves with a recycling partner, and we took it upon ourselves to find a way of recycling polyester back to its raw PET. Now, most people would say that that was quite a difficult challenge to do, but what was one that we really wanted to get involved in and do so. So now we can recycle back to raw PET from each of and every garment that we work with. So how does this work? Our circular solution. Firstly, we want to design our garments to be recycled. If you design the garment right from the start, make every constituent part recyclable, then you can recycle the garment at end of life. You also know what you've got in the garment, and therefore you know what you can get back out of the garment. We make sure that we manufacture our garments in accordance to these standards. So if you understand what you've put into it and you make sure that everything that you put into that garment is, in our case, a monofiber, we can make sure that we can get that out at end of life. There is no mixing of any fibers in this, so you're working with 100% PET. And if you're working with 100% PET, you know you're going to get 100% PET back. So on our polo shirts, for example, all of the constituent parts, the fabric itself is made out of recycled polyester. We make sure that the buttons, the trims, they're all made out of recycled polyesters. And because we can make it out of that, we are starting from a really good point. The next point is making sure that we know where that garment is. So when we manufacture our range of garments and they're going out into the workwear and they're uniform and they're part of a company's brand, we know that the majority of them are given out and actually still belong to the company that has issued them. Because that company has issued them, they know where that garment is at all times, and they can keep track of it, and they can make sure that that garment comes back. So before they can get a new garment back, or a new garment issued to that wearer, they have to return the old garment. And it follows back down the supply chain, back the same way that it was issued out, and comes back to us. And we will, once they've got back to their uniform supplier, we will come and collect it and take it back. We will then be in a position where we can recycle those. So we use a mechanical recycling technique. It's pretty much the same way as you recycle plastic bottles. But instead of that, we have designed our solution so it can recycle textile fibers. Because we can recycle textile fibers, we can get it back to raw PET. And once we've got it back to raw PET, we've got the building blocks of plastic. We've got the building blocks of making new garments. And over the last year, over lockdown, we have been working with Unify, with Repreve yarns. So we've been speaking to them, and they have been testing and working with our recycled polyester. So our PET has gone back to Repreve, and they've tested it, and they have developed yarns using Repreve, which is probably the most well-known recycled yarn that's out there. And they can now, instead of just using PET from plastic bottles, they can use PET from our recycled textile fiber. Once they've got that back, we've then been working with Klopman International. So Klopman have now developed a range of fabrics that are designed to be recycled. So you've now got workwear that's made out of Repreve yarn, which is made out of recycled fiber. And the Klopman yarn, Klopman fabrics will then be able to be made into workwear and uniform to exactly the same standards that you'd expect from a brand like Klopman. And we will then be able to work with those users of that fabric to make sure that their fabric at end of life comes back to us and we can recycle it. So for the first time, you can actually see circular textiles in action. This is happening now. So we can now take all of your designs and we can turn them into recyclable garments, which we can then recycle back into PET, which we can then recycle back into fabric, which we can then recycle back into clothing and start the process all over again.
Can I just ask you there, Tim, the same question I put to Sean earlier on? With the recycling, does it sort of break down the properties, or is it as strong and would have the longevity at the same time?
Okay, we, in the work that we've been doing, and certainly with working with people like Repreve, we are getting no loss on this. Now, it's one of those conundrums. You are very, very unlikely to get the same batch of clothing back at exactly the same time. So if you make a range of clothing for, for workwear, and you supply 100,000, 150,000 polo shirts out into the marketplace, it is really unlikely you're going to get those same 150,000 polo shirts back at exactly the same time and then recycle them back at exactly the same time. We know that we're looking at least 10 times before you need to add in anything. But the likelihood is that you are going to get these garments permanently recycled through. So you're looking at thousands of tons worth of garments, all at different stages. And when you come to make the yarns, it will be up to Repreve and people like them to decide what they need to make sure they've got the right quality to make the yarns that they need. So no, we're not seeing any loss. And if we do see loss, it is minuscule. What we need to add in to make it, to bring it back up to a quality will probably mean adding in plastic bottles, recycled plastic bottles, and adding that back in. So again, you're staying within a fully recyclable system, and we're getting very, very low loss of value in this. And, I don't see that to be an issue, to be honest about.
I know that you actually have a complete garment ready to go at the moment. One of the questions that is always put to me from buyers is that there's a huge cost to having a recycled garment. Is there any way you can sort of alleviate that sort of constant worry to any buyers listening today?
There are several issues there. One is, what is the real cost that people should be paying for their garments? At the moment, there is such, or has been such a drive to lower price and get down to the cheapest possible garment that you're not getting the longevity in the garment that you should have got anyway. But my take on it is, with the system that we've developed, and we've developed a license operation as well, so that it will mean that anybody can use their existing supply chain. They don't just have to use our manufacturing capabilities. You can, if by buying into the license arrangement, you will then be able to manufacture in your existing supply chain with your existing cost structures, which you understand. Your usual cost structures that you've got there will be exactly the same, and we will enable you to have access to our recycled yarns and recycled fabrics if you need them, or if you've got your own source of those, so long as we can sign off on them and we know that they're 100% recyclable by us, then we will issue you a license, which will mean that we will take those products back at end of life. And that removes the cost of end of life. In fact, it sort of gets you into a point where you've bought in early. So anything that you're making today is then not, it's not going to be a cost down the line. So if you're making garments today that are going to be recycled by us in 3 years' time, you're future-proofing yourself against future costs of recycling. And one of the things we're aware of is extended producer responsibility. So you are going to be responsible for the waste that you create. Now, if we can take that responsibility effectively away from you because you bought into us early, we guarantee that we'll take that product back at end of life. Then you've got yourself away from that responsibility down the line and the cost down the line. So we think that actually it's going to be the most efficient and effective way of dealing with waste and dealing with the old garments going forward.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Are we finished, Tim?
Yeah, I'm happy to take questions at the end, obviously.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tim. And Cindy, we have Cindy Rose, founder of Warnergan Technology. Cindy has been working tirelessly for the last decade on this development of the new product. And one thing that Cindy, people always say to me is, when is their product going to be ready? When are you going to be ready? Cindy, you're on the stage again. They want to know when you're going to be ready.
That is the $1,000,000 question, which I'm going to answer during my presentation. But yes, all good things come with patience. I'm going to switch off my screen here as well, just so I get a better quality. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, that looks great.
Great, great. Well, firstly, thanks very much for the invitation to be here today. And it's fantastic to see the other developments and innovations that are in practice, and all the progress that's being made. It's really exciting to see. So thanks for putting today together, Yvette, and showing what can be done. Now,
Absolutely.
I'm going to, most of you are aware of our polymer recycling technology. We've been in development of it for over 8 years. So I'm not going to go into much detail, maybe just a recap. But I'd also like to talk about some of the hurdles remaining to circularity and what the workwear industry can be doing in the short term. So a quick overview here. We've developed a process that can take in pure and blended polyester and cotton, end of use, non-rewearable textiles. We can separate the polyester and the cotton. We can decontaminate and extract those raw materials. So all the dyes, the finishes, all the other contaminants have been removed. And our outputs are a polyester pellet and a cellulosic pulp. These two raw materials can then go back into the supply chain, back into fiber spinners like Lenzing, to become yarn, textiles, and garments all over again. The big question, where are we at? Well, we are in the process of scaling up, going from lab scale to first industrial plant. Can take at least a decade on average, and we're in year 8. So we're making good progress. Earlier this year, we've launched our pilot plant, as you can see here in Redcar in the north of England, where we're carrying out extensive trials, optimizing the processing steps, optimizing the products, all of this data collection in order to inform the next phase, which is a demonstration plant. And that demonstration plant will be the blueprint for our industrial scale plants. So we're really, we're still a few years away from that first industrial plant, which is frustrating for everyone, including us. But I mean, like I say, I think, you know, the industry is ready for it. Everyone's calling out for it, but is the industry actually ready for this? And I would argue that actually, no, it's not yet. Because I would question everyone on this webinar, you know, who's at 100% collection in terms of workwear? Is anyone out there collecting what's being produced today? The reality is, if we were to stick a 50,000 ton per year plant up somewhere in the UK today, we would struggle to get sufficient supply. And that's not because the end of use textiles aren't out there. They're absolutely out there in very high volumes. But the challenge is a lot of it's still going to landfill. Now, from a workwear perspective, today there's very little incentive to collect high volumes because the value is low and the end markets are still limited. But as soon as we have that first plant up and running, those collection systems can really hit the ground hard. And I think phasing in terms of collection and ramping collections up is going to be key. The other big challenge is that textiles collected today are sorted manually, primarily by eye, by hand, into hundreds of reuse and non-rewearable categories. It's very labor intensive and it often takes place in low labor cost regions. So we're ending up exporting a high percentage of collected textiles today, which isn't great. Now, my next slide, I want to talk about what we as a chemical recycling technology or regenerative recycling are going to require in the future if we are to base a plant here in the UK and deal with the high volumes of what's being generated. We're going to need to shift away from this labor intensive sorting type of facility to a highly mechanized system where the sorting is done separating garments automatically by fiber content, and then going through a clip and strip step where buttons, zips are removed before being baled up and delivered to our future plants. And what this type of shift will enable is high volume, low cost feedstock to supply our future plants. And it will enable this type of sorting to happen close to the source of collection. So we're no longer going to have to export high volumes for sorting, certainly for post-consumer textiles in the future. This here is the FiberSort setup based in the Netherlands, where they've based the fiber sorting on near-infrared technology, and they've made huge advances on the actual system as well, with lots of robots and conveyor belts. And then, of course, there's Siptex in Sweden, also just announcing a couple of days ago, their sorting facility is ramping up, and they're using TOMRA technology for sorting. Now, for workwear, there's potential for skipping out some of these steps. You know, if the collection and the infrastructure are done well, because we know what the inputs are. As Tim was saying, they're generally high volumes of uniform materials. So I think there's some steps to skip there for this sector. And then finally, I'd like to look at what's on the horizon and how the workwear sector can start preparing for a circular future. We recently launched something called World Circular Textiles Day, Countdown to 2050 on October 8th. And the purpose of WCTD is to bring together the growing network of companies and organizations, all committed to circularity and a circular future. Many of you are on this call today. And also to imagine what could circularity look like once it's actually fully achieved, once we've managed to keep all products and raw materials in continual circulation. And as part of World Circular Textiles Day, we predicted that circularity is going to play out in 3 distinct phases. Firstly is the R&D and innovation years. It's exactly where we are today. It's the era where we're bringing together all of the puzzle pieces to form the system, the recycling technologies, the design, the collection systems. Then moving into phase 2, the infrastructure and rollout years, when we're now replicating and rolling out circular supply and return loops. And then thirdly, the expansion and completion years, where we're really optimizing the system for 100% recapture and recirculation. And the point of this slide here is to show really that we are still in the early days of circularity. A lot hinges on regenerative recycling technologies being industrialized and replicated, which is, you know, coming towards 2023, 2024. But there's a long road ahead and a lot can be done to prepare for this future. So what we can start doing today, if you haven't started already, start planning your collection systems. The end markets may not fully be there today, but we can start building the plans for when they are. We can start designing for circularity. I mean, Tim's far ahead of the game here, which is great to see. But we first need to be understanding what circularity is. Whose process are we designing for? Is it monofiber recycling processes? Is it mechanical? Is it regenerative? Is it Renewcell, who are doing 100% cotton? Or Lenzing's Refibra process, or a blended approach like ours? You know, there's still a lot of questions around what we're designing for, how textiles are going to be collected in the future. Next, communicate your ambitions, you know, and what you're wanting to achieve with your customers. Bring them into the journey now. If they're not already on their own journey, they're going to want to be part of it. And finally, of course, become a World Circular Textiles Day signatory. It's free to join, and you'll be joining the likes of H&M, Gap, Wrap, Fashion for Good, Lenzing, Veolia, Salvation Army, many more are on board. And you can see more about our aims by visiting this site. But we want to bring everyone together to really galvanize the momentum that's happening today. And you'll hear a bit more about that from Kat and what's happening in Wrap and Textiles 2030 next. But there's a long way ahead. It's very exciting, and let's do it together. Look forward to answering questions. Thanks very much.
Sorry, my mic was mute then. Thank you, Cindy. Cindy, I just want to ask you, so when you say, you know, doing the collection and are we ready, are you pointing this to the suppliers, directly to the suppliers of the likes of Alexander, Dimension in corporate wear? Those are the sort of companies that you're hoping to educate in order to move with this process, because they have massive volumes of clothes to dispose of, as you know. You know, it's one of the biggest contracts, like the Postal Service, they have like 64,000 wearers. These are the sort of things that you're looking at. So are those are the sort of people you're trying to get on board, and are those are the sort of people you're looking to join the movement that you've started just now?
Yes, I mean, we often focus on the post-consumer textile, end-of-use textile supply chain, all of the private and charity collectors out there. But for this particular audience, absolutely. I mean, corporate wear and workwear, it's the supply chains are there. You've got, you know, your big sellers here that could easily get those collection systems in place. But two things to stress. One is about phasing. If you go out and start collecting all of those textiles today, there's not going to be an end solution. So we need to have the conversation about phasing, what's possible today, what's going to be possible in the future, but also the business case for it. There is a huge business case and economic incentive. Not today, but there will be, because we're going to be buying that feedstock. That is perfectly good feedstock that can go into our process. It's going to be in high volumes. It's going to be uniform. So I think it's the additional revenue stream that we want to emphasize. This isn't a sustainability call. Well, call it that, but it's also an economic case and a huge opportunity for companies in the future. But engage in it now, because we have to be planning for this and collaborating on when we need it to happen and when these solutions are going to be able to provide an answer.
So with with that in mind, will you have things in place to do all this collection, to move to the plant, or how would that work? Or are we going to be asking the suppliers? Because what you've got to remember is with suppliers, they have got to build this in if they have to pay for it for disposable, and that's got to be working to their tender. So although you say it's 2 years down the line, that is nothing. If we're going to educate the industry on it, it has to be now. They need to know about it now.
Exactly, and that's where I think Kat's going to talk about Textiles 2030, and that is exactly the format and the platform for where we need to be talking and bringing together and planning the infrastructure change that needs to happen, because we know exactly what's needed and we can communicate that, but it's such a widespread effort. We need advanced textile sorting facilities that are going to look very different than they look today, and it's going to take time and bringing those partners together to work towards. We need government involved in this as well because of the infrastructure that will be required, because who should pay for this? Suppliers don't want to pay, brands don't want to pay, no one wants to pay. So we need to get together to figure out, okay, what is the cost to move to this new system? We're going to buy the feedstock, but getting that investment in the sorting facilities, it's going to be intensive, mechanizing those systems, working with the end-of-use textile supply chain today. There's a lot that needs doing, and we need to bring it all together to work out how to pay for it. Who's going to
One
do
of
that?
the things also that you mentioned about bringing government involved, but this should be, and I'm speaking to all the panels and our participants online at the moment, the government should be looking as part of their 2050 program to be more sustainable. All of this should be part of it. Now, PCIW is working. I've spoke to most of you already about this, and a report to the government. And I think it's important that we put this as part of the sustainable program about the industry, about what we're doing within this report, so they can be clear that there is a goal to help to move us all forward. And I don't have to remind anyone online here at the moment that we are the second largest polluter in the world, next to aviation. And I just think whatever we're doing, the message need to be very clear and succinct. And the movement that you're building at the moment, that movement need to go up the chain. It's no point in me talking about it if it's not going up the chain. And I know you've been working tirelessly, yourselves for the last 8 years on this. And I just feel that your voice needs to be heard as well through that channel, so that they can, if there is government money that you can gain from it, then definitely this is where we should be going. But thank you for that. I'll come back to you in a moment with some more questions. Catherine, thanks very much for your patience. And we've got Catherine now from RAP, and I'm delighted you're with us. Take us through the plans.
Thanks, Yvette. Let me just try and share my screen. Is that, hang on.
Yeah, you're on, Dan.
Are we on full screen there? Okay. Yes, thanks for inviting me, Yvette, and thanks for giving RAP this platform to sort of talk about what we're doing to the workwear industry. So I'm Catherine Salvage, and I'm the Sustainable Sector Specialist at RAP. And in this presentation, just going to take you through a brief introduction to RAP, our work in the UK clothing and textile sector, and why collaboration is key to the industry to move forward for a more sustainable and circular future. So RAP's vision is a world in which resources are used sustainably. So our mission is to accelerate and move to a more sustainable and resource efficient economy. And we do this through reinventing how we design and produce products, rethinking how we consume and use products, and redefining reuse and recycling to keep products at their highest value for longer, and to reduce waste to landfill and incineration. So WRAP is a not-for-profit that works collaboratively with government, businesses and citizens, and we are world leaders in helping organisations achieve greater resource efficiency and reduce waste. We provide information, tools and practical advice that help governments, businesses and consumers take action on their environmental impacts. And we provide a safe, non-competitive space where businesses can share best practice and collaborate to deliver change. So we do a lot of our work through sector-specific voluntary agreements. So we have Coulthard's 2025 in the food and drink sector, the Plastic Pact that focuses on the plastic packaging sector, and then today I'm going to focus on the Sustainable Clothing Action Plan and Textiles 2030, which focus on reducing resources, tackling climate change and accelerating a move towards circularity in the UK clothing and textiles industries. So at WRAP, we believe collaboration is a key driver for change, and the challenges we address through our voluntary agreements are often too large and complex to be addressed by businesses, governments or consumers in isolation. So through the voluntary agreements, we support multi-party collaboration to develop more efficient and sustainable supply chains. So WRAP's voluntary agreements in the textile sector really benefit the signatories by accelerating progress towards sustainability goals in a cost-effective way. It gives assurance that their targets are robust and aligned with the industry, and also gives them confidence to communicate their progress to a wide range of stakeholders. Our collaborative working groups provide a safe pre-competitive space for companies to work together. And voluntary agreements can be set up without the need for new legislation. So this allows the industry to future-proof itself against potential changes in regulation by staying ahead of the game. It also gives businesses a seat at the table with government policymakers. And finally, businesses can access WRAP's expertise and support with potential external funding for pilot projects, as well as business opportunities through global and national partnerships. So the Sustainable Clothing Action Plan, or SCAP for short, is a great example of how collaborative action through cross-sector voluntary agreement has successfully delivered change to more sustainable practices in the clothing industry. So over the last 8 years, WRAP and the SCAP signatories have set targets and collaboratively worked towards reducing the carbon, water and waste footprints of clothing on the UK market. So through steering groups and topic-specific working groups, we've had major brands and retailers, recyclers, sector bodies, NGOs and charities sharing their expertise and collaborating to take action in 4 key areas. So they are influencing consumer behaviours, designing for extended life of clothing, increasing reuse and recycling of textiles, and also developing metrics for sustainability. So as well as collaborative action, WRAP believes measurements and metrics are key to driving change, and SCAP has followed a target, measure and act principle. So through the development of our sustainability metrics with the industry, WRAP has been able to develop the SCAP footprint calculator, which provides a science-based approach to measuring sustainability. And by using this measurement tool, signatories have been able to gain clear visibility of their products' impacts, allowing them to take focused action and implement practical solutions into their businesses. So through a combination of individual and collaborative actions, which have included switching to preferred fibres, collaborating with suppliers on lower impact production methods, extending the useful life of clothing, increasing reuse through retailer take-back schemes, and improving citizen messages around donation, the SCAP signatories have achieved over a 15% reduction in carbon and water over the last 8 years. So this went beyond the targets that were set. However, the waste targets have proved harder to tackle and we're unlikely to meet them by the end of 2020. But this leads me nicely into Textiles 2030, which is WRAP's new voluntary agreement for the textile industry, which will launch next April. So Textiles 2030 is a UK sector, textile sector collaboration project which aims to make rapid science-based progress on circularity and climate action. So it's going to build on the successful elements of SCAP, especially the collaborative working and the use of measurement to drive action. And Textiles 2030 will focus on addressing the textile industry's waste footprint by encouraging a move towards a circular economy. So the government is taking notice of the waste the textile industry creates, and it's reviewing how an EPR scheme could be implemented in the sector. So learnings from Textiles 2030 will be really key to advise government policies around the ideas of polluter pays principle, also looking at eco-design standards, how to support the reuse and recycling sector, and how to increase closed loop recycling, and also potentially looking at sort of eco-product labelling. So in Textiles 30, we're still going to focus on reducing carbon and water footprint of all new products. And we've set an ambitious target to reduce carbon by 40 to 50%, which is in line with the Paris Agreement. We also aim to reduce the water footprint of new products by 30%. And the final target is to create and deliver a UK-wide roadmap for circular textiles through cross-sector collaboration. So we are developing this roadmap at the moment, and as we continue to develop it with the industry, we're looking at 3 key areas. So designing products to be circular through design for longer life and recyclability. We're looking at adopting business models that use a product for longer, and we're also looking at closing the loop on materials through increasing fibre to fibre recycling. So through some modelling work that we've done at WRAP, we've been able to predict that by just taking these circularity actions alone, we could reduce carbon by 40% by 2030. And this is by displacing the impact of producing new products. So again, building on SCAP, there'll be a role for everyone to play in Textiles 2030 from businesses. So that includes brands and retailers, supply chain partners, and new innovative businesses, to citizens' role, and then the reuse and recycling sector will be really key to Textiles 2030, and of course we'll be working with government as well. So in 2019, the Environmental Audit Committee's Fixing Fashion report highlighted the progress that had been made by the SCAP signatories, but it also recommended that SCAP needed to gain much wider adoption from the industry to continue to drive the change that was needed. So Textiles 2030 has taken this on board, and we aim to gain deeper collaboration from across the sector and a much broader participation from the textiles and garment industry. So to do that, we've developed a range of different memberships that will allow the programme to be accessible for businesses of all sizes, and also to start including circular and innovative business models. We're also including home textiles, and we're really keen to engage with the workwear and professional clothing sector. So we believe the workwear sector has huge potential to move to a more circular system, drive the demand for recycled fibres, and show the fashion industry that circularity really is achievable. We think there's huge potential to implement circular design in the workwear industry. And as Tim's talked about designing for recyclability, we think this is really key for workwear. We also think there's the potential for lots of pilot projects in closed loop recycling, as the nature of workwear means it can't often be resold on the reuse market, and there is also a consistent feedstock supply. As Tim has also said, synthetics are a key fibre in workwear, and this could be used to sort of drive and accelerate the scaling up of fibre to fibre recycling. And there's also growing interest from governments in green public sector procurement, which again could drive the demand for recycled fibres. And then going back to the point that branded workwear often has little value on the resale market, we feel there's a real need to scale up take-back schemes around workwear. And there's also the potential to trial and scale up circular business models that keep workwear garments in use for longer, such as service models, rental and repair. So WRAP has also been involved in the European Clothing Action Plan, and we have facilitated some pilots around recycled content in workwear and also embedding circular procurement into the purchasing of workwear. So that was quite a whistle-stop tour of WRAP's work on textiles, what we've achieved and what we hope to achieve in the next 10 years. So if anybody wants to be involved or know more information about Textiles 2030, please visit our website or email the team on the Textiles 2030 address there. We've got 20 founding signatories already signed up, and Worn Again is one of them. And again, you can discover more about our founding signatories on the website, or you can also contact myself or our business account managers, Claire and Vicky, if you want to know more. Thank you.
Okay, so let's look at some of the questions that have come through. So we have one here that is kind of talking a little bit about the proposition about more expensive sustainable products, a time where we've got a more thrifty market that is spending less on clothing. So the question basically is, how are we going to encourage the shift in consumer demand to be willing to spend more on more sustainable or durable products in comparison to the fast fashion that we currently face today? That hasn't been necessarily directed at any one individual. So maybe if Cindy Rhodes, you could take that up.
Yeah, sure. I think it's, you know, the whole COVID epidemic has accelerated the understanding that we need new solutions and we need them quick. And I think it's changed mindsets to a certain extent. And there does seem to be a willingness to pay more. Now, on the one hand, I think, you know, sustainability can cost more. On the other hand, the approach we've taken with our technology, which I know is far off in the future, is that we will, with our process, be able to produce virgin equivalent outputs at the same price and to be able to compete with virgin resources. And if we can do that, that is a win-win situation, because there's certainly not a compromise on quality. In fact, it's better. And there's absolutely not a compromise on price. But I mean, that's kind of longer term in the future. Short term, you know, it's part of the process. It's part of the teething pains of moving forward. And I think in many cases, mindsets have shifted from a consumer perspective. That may be different in the workwear world. But maybe others have something to say on that.
Okay, and so following up on a similar topic, so I think this would go, again, they haven't specified, but I think Tim Cross would be good for this. So when it comes to the end users buyers, so what do you think they'll be thinking on terms of maybe a cashback incentive to try and encourage the uptake on the recycling of the end-of-life products? And do you think some might see the picture upside down as considering it funding the yarn suppliers?
Thank you. At the moment, majority of uniform and workwear should be collected back in and disposed of through normal routes. It can't be reworn. And they should be paying to get that those uniforms binned or burnt. And at the moment, that costs about between £500 and £600 per tonne. Now, we know that this is a cost which is only going to rise. And if the polluters, the uniform buyers, take into account how much they are spending, or at least should be spending, on this resource, then all of a sudden it starts to become more of a more acceptable approach to go, actually, I tell you what, let's recycle it instead, particularly if it's seen as a massive marketing opportunity for them. It's stepping in the right direction. And from our perspective, we have not seen any concerns that people have had about whether it's the right thing to do. They all know this is where we've got to go. Everyone understands that we can't continue to do things as we have been doing them. So it's an open door. Everyone's going, yeah, we know we need to do it. We're just going to have to get on and do it. And I think as the government gets involved in this and we start having greater levies on waste and waste product, then people will begin to realize, actually, I need to find a solution because it's costing too much. I mean, the NHS is a perfect example of one of their biggest costs is landfill. They are piling so much product into landfill. So much of it can actually be recycled, be that in recycled textiles, everything. If you look at, start undoing what goes on in the NHS, there's so much product there that should and could easily be reused. And so we're working with various laundry companies to work out ways where they can deliver to us a clean product that is stripped out of, if it's got a PU backing, waterproof backing, can we strip that out? Can we strip out PFCs? If we can recycle that product. There are so many opportunities there where I think in the long run, as Cindy said, you're going to end up going, why in the world are we throwing this stuff away? It's ridiculous. It's a massive resource. We spent so much money creating it. Let's not waste it. Let's make sure that we get it back. And if it starts having value, you're going to make damn sure that you've got it back. Our approach is to try and put a price on it and put a license fee on it. So you've paid. So if you've already paid for that to be recycled, the last thing you're going to do is allow somebody else to just throw it away. You go, no, we've paid. Get that back in there. Let's get it recycled.
Okay, that's good. And
so this number one here about the cellulose, Declan, is quite no mention about the cellulose. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, there was no mention about how the cellulosis is being found in the oceans currently. Studies in 2018 and 2020 identified near 80% of the microfilaments were of this source, whereas synthetic were 8 and 12%. So is Alessandra there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, so
but
yeah.
I'm not sure if I got the question.
Ah, fair enough. So it's about they said there was no mention about cellulosic being fibers being found in the oceans currently. Studies in 2018 and 20 identified near 80% of the microfilaments were of this source, whereas synthetic were 8 to 12. So I guess that's a question asking about the breakdown of these fibers in the ocean, and is this something that takes how much time, and is it a solution, a problem that has a solution?
Ooh, this is a good question. I mean, all the studies we have done say clearly that the cellulose fibers biodegrade quite quickly. There are a lot of studies still going on. So, but to be honest, I'm not familiar with the latest findings now.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. So yeah, it seems to be whilst it's kind of a new technology to try and transition into the more sustainable future, it would be a learning progress as how we go forward in that, I guess. And we've got one here for as well. So what kind of strategy, so this is one for Cindy McNaull, what strategy has shown to have better results in reducing carbon footprint? So I know in your slides you had kind of durability equal sustainability, but do you think any of the two have a greater short-term impact, or do you think long-term they are just completely equal and should be taken as such?
I think for us, it's probably a little too early to tell a specific answer for that. Obviously, for 50 plus years, we've been really pushing those boundaries of durable fabric innovations, and with the end goal of making things last as absolutely long as possible. So you've got, the reduce, reuse, recycle, and then, all kinds of regeneration. But we're starting at the very, very beginning with just keep the products in use as long as you possibly can. what we have done and what you will see us coming out in 2021 is launching of a new program called Cordura Lab to Life. And we really feel like that's a great example of all of the hard work that we do on the back end of testing the products and trying to make sure that they're fit for purpose, and trying to match that up with what is the product is being used for and experienced in the real life. So there'll be more to come on that, and that's where we really want to close the loop on life cycle assessment of the end garment and being able to, as accurately as possible, predict in a test setting what the product's going to see in its any of its lives, where it's it's version use or it's recycle all the way back through. We'll be able to have a better predictability for that. So stay tuned for more on that.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, guys. Your presentation, Cindy Rose, is always riveting to everyone. And I think it's just time. I think we need to have some more information and publish a little bit more about the journey that you will be reaching in the next couple of years. And our industry, I believe, with yourself and Catherine, who needs to understand more about how this journey, we're going to get to that end result, because you are the end result of, and you're talking about the collection. That for me is always been a major obstacle I can see. And also a lot of companies have their logos on their clothes. How do you intend, can you just go into with everything on, or how is that going to work with your products, Cindy?
Yeah, more of a process. Going into our process, absolutely, it can have any logos, or it gets chopped up and then we break down to the raw material level. So all of those sorts of issues won't be a problem for the process. I think going back to what you were saying, Yvette, around, being more vocal about legislation, policy change, talking about what's needed from a collection perspective. Any reports you're doing, please come to us and we can talk about what we think is going to be needed to get that word out there, because it's in many ways it's crystal clear, but it's hard for people to see because there's so much complexity to moving towards circularity, and everyone plays a different role in it. So, we're definitely keen to be involved in talking about what's needed on that roadmap and talking about what's needed from a collection perspective and the phasing and the timeline, because it needs to all be linked up.
That's fantastic, guys. To all our participants, to all our panel, I'd like to take this opportunity once again just to thank you all. As usual, we run out of time. You've all been great. You will be hearing from me, because we'll be writing all of this up in the magazine to follow up on what we're doing. Our chairman, John, do you want to say something before we go, please? You're on mute.
Yeah,
Hello.
unmuted. No, just to echo, I think it's such a great subject, and there's a lot we know, and I certainly think there's a lot we don't know, really. I think that's the key issue. But it's a bit of a soft way to say we're on that journey. But I think the journey is very important, purely because an old boss of mine said once, he said, well, John, every day you wake up, as long as you learn something, then you'll learn to be a little bit better as a person. So you learn something every day. So I think that as long as we continue to learn, and I think also engagement with government is going to become increasingly more important, purely because if they legislate for monies to be levied against people from just throwing things away into landfill, and sadly, with the recent pandemic, we're all too familiar with the amount of PPE that's actually disappearing underneath the ground. I mean, I'm not suggesting that could be recyclable, but you can't just keep on shoving things in landfill or trying to burn it because the effluent from the burning also does the same thing. So I think there's loads of different things, and I think it's fantastic the way you guys have developed strategies to be able to cope and put yourself in a good position to where you're going to be in the future. And I just hope that we as PCIA can laud that progress and help communicate the future progress that's coming in the years. So thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you again. And thank you, John. There are still some questions on here, which we will send out to you all. But Cindy, Catherine, we need to talk more about this. The same, Cindy McNall. It'd be great to understand a little bit more about the project you're developing at the moment, to get that out to all our members, onto the industry as a whole. Tim, you've done an amazing job. You know, I'm your biggest supporter with the product that you produce right there. So absolutely, we'll keep on pushing that up. Sean, amazing as always. Thank you for your support. I really do appreciate that. And Alexander, your presentation as always. Thank you all very much for your time. Declan, good job. Take care, guys. If you want me, you know where I am.
Thanks, Yvette.
Hey, thanks,
Bye
guys.
for now.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.